What's going on, everybody? So essentially, we are looking at a new camera today. This is the Z-Cam E2-M4. This is just a first impressions video, and I kind of want to just like talk about this camera, but speak a little broadly about cinema cameras in general. These cameras are getting a lot of flack lately, but I believe the flack is misplaced, is extremely misplaced. And it is often coming from a perspective of ignorance in approaching this camera. This is essentially a cinema camera. Like truly it's a cinema camera. I believe that there's a couple different options of cameras that you really can choose from at this moment. And that's the great time that we live in, is that we have a variety of cameras for a variety of needs. You have your mirrorless cameras. They're the photo cameras that are optimized for video. The people who are going to be needing those cameras the most are vloggers, right? So you'll see that the majority of the features within the video optimized photo cameras are aimed towards vloggers. The people who usually buy those really care about autofocus, right? Because they vlog all the time and they want autofocus, and autofocus is really important for them. With those cameras, the demand within the user base is it needs to do what it should do extremely well with little effort. Then you have essentially what I like to call them are more so your large sensor video cameras. Now these are like most recently your C series in Canon, the C100, C200, C300s, the C70 would kind of fall into this camp. The Sony FS series, right? That would fall into this camp. The Panasonic, oh gosh, what the heck was the one that the Panasonic made? No one's buying that one anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But these types of cameras, they're the large sensor cameras. They're still interchangeable lenses, but they're not exactly a actual like cinema camera. They're more designed of a video camera, right? Because it's within the realm of the traditional video camera. These things are very great for documentary filmmakers. I mean, ultimately, that's who really thrives off of those types of cameras, are people who just need a sort of like all-in-one solution. You don't want to rig it out too much because it starts to become quite of a burden, and it starts to make the usability a bit more complex. So that's why they've got internal NDs. That's why they've got they often come with top handles. They've got XLR inputs. You know, like those cameras are designed to be a sort of like grab and go all-in-one solution. But then on the other side of this is you actually have what I would call Cine cameras, right? So they're legit cinema cameras, and that is where the Z-Cam is at. The Z-Cam is in its essence and in its design, a proper cinema camera. You'll find that the learning curve with these cameras is much more steep. It's much more extreme than with your other two groups. The reason it's much more extreme is because this is a much more sophisticated tool, if that makes sense. That word is going to come off and feel insulting, because it's not to say that sophisticated in the sense that a Z-Cam is better than, say, a C70 or, say, the FX9, right? It's not what I'm saying. What I mean is that this is not an all-in-one solution, but it's not designed to be an all-in-one solution. Very similar to how your Reds are built and your Aris are built. These cameras are not intended to be an all-in-one solution. They are intended to be highly customizable. That's why you have the cube form factor. So the cube form factor ultimately is, it's a brain system, right? So it's essentially, it comes and it's just a brain, right? There's a small LCD screen so you can go through the menus, but you're supposed to add a monitor. There's obviously there's like a built-in microphone, but you're supposed to add a microphone. Everything that you need to make it work how you want it to work, you have now the opportunity to fully customize it to meet your needs, okay? So that is a huge benefit because of the customization. Because now you basically have, in essence, a blank slate. You've just got the camera brain, and you can now rig this camera out to suit whatever shooting condition you want to place it in, okay? That's why, and that's the purpose of it. The reason for that is, think about if you're actually shooting a film, okay? And you need to place all these cameras in these different positions. Well, now essentially you could get, let's just say, 4 different camera bodies, right? All the same camera, all filming the same exact image, right? But you can rig them up in different situations based upon the shooting requirements of the day. So you can have one of these rigged up to a car, while you have one of them on sticks, while you have one of them on a handheld system, while you have one of them on a crane, okay? With the video-centric camera, because it's the all-in-one solution, it might be too big to put on a gimbal. It might be too big to rig onto a car. Does that make sense? The form factor itself limits the opportunities that you have to position it. Whereas this opens up significant opportunities to customize it and to use it however you need to. And I feel like, in a sense, the thing going against Zcam isn't necessarily the camera itself, it's potentially the price point that the camera is at. I am grateful for the price point. This brain is $1,400, right? $1,400 or $1,500 for the brain, okay? The GH5 new, when I bought it, was $2,000, right? So, and it's both a micro four thirds sensor, right? I mean, go look at the specs. The amount of features that you're getting for this brain compared to the GH5 is totally awesome and just a significant value for what you can get with this camera for its price point. So let me try to explain why the price point of this camera, while a huge benefit, is also its downside. There is essentially a, for the most part, there's a correlation between the cost that you spend on a product and the complexity of that product, therefore the learning curve required to master that tool, okay? You'll find this in the camera world extremely often, that the low-cost cameras, so for example, a GoPro, right? A GoPro is like, I don't know, what's that, like $400 max, right? Oftentimes it's like you're looking at somewhere between $250 to $350. That's a GoPro. You buy a GoPro, you basically hit record on a GoPro. That's all you need to do, okay? Lower cost cameras are designed for people who just want a grab and go solution, okay? You just want to be able to pick it up and want it to work and then go and hit the ground running with it. You don't want to think too hard about it. It's designed for simplicity. That's why at the price point it's for a mass audience. And the majority of people don't want to think too hard, okay? Like, once you make your customer overthink, it's bad. It's very, very bad. Like, we don't like thinking too hard about something because it's exhausting, especially this day and age where we want immediate gratification, right? Instant gratification, that's what we want. So lower priced options tend to be extremely easy to use. And as you increase in price, you also increase in complexity, right? So let's just take then, for example, an Arri Alexa, right? If you buy that machine, the learning curve to master that machine is significantly higher than a GoPro. Because as you increase cost, you're increasing features, And as you increase features, it takes time to learn those features and understand what they do in order to master them. So more features equals bigger learning curve, okay? That's where the price of the Z-Cam cameras is actually working against them. Because this is legit a mini Arri Alexa, okay? This thing is like, honestly, it's like a mini Red. It's a mini Arri Alexa. That ultimately is what it is. Like, for example, this doesn't have XLR inputs, okay? It's got a LEMO connector, and that is how you connect your XLR to it. So I don't have the cable right now, it's on the way, but essentially you get an XLR to LEMO cable, you plug that in, and that's essentially your audio connection. Right now I've got my microphone going to my H5 and then plug that into the to the mic input. Alexas also have LEMO inputs, right? And that was part of the design decision, was to use the LEMO because apparently it provides, don't quote me on this, but this is the thing, I'm still trying to learn all of this, but it provides cleaner audio that way, okay? But it's a weird decision, right? It's a weird choice for people who are used to thinking about cameras at this level of a price point, which is $1,500. That's why I think it's not properly being evaluated, is that the price point, while super great, is a disadvantage to it because it's attracting a massive amount of people who are demanding and expecting that the learning curve be very simple on this machine, where in fact it's highly complex, and this really is, learning curve-wise, on the level of an Alexa and Red. The cool thing about it, though, is it really, for me, it seriously feels like how it did when the DSLR revolution started. When I had to move from using the Canon XL2, like a mini DV camcorder, to a DSLR, and I had never used a DSLR before, that's what this feels like. That's what learning this camera feels like, moving from a video optimized mirrorless camera to a proper cinema camera. It's the tools are similar, and it's frustrating because I know I should understand this, but I have a lot to learn, and it does require a significant initial time investment if this is your first time coming to this type of a form factor and this type of a system. It's kind of why I believe that a lot of people who have used Reds are so stoked about this camera, is because they understand the significant value that this camera is. And you'll hear that a lot of people in the initial user base used Reds, realized that this was a steal, and immediately jumped ship. That's why you'll notice a lot of fervent fandom in the community, is because, man, what Z-Cam has really given you is really, it's a steal for what it is. It just requires an initial investment. So far, I think it's awesome. I really, really do like the camera. Image quality-wise versus the GH5, this has 13 stops. The GH5, I think, has 10.5 with Vlog, or 10. It's like 10 or 10.5. The highlight roll-off is much, much better on this camera, and I'm very impressed with the accuracy of the colors that I'm getting out of the Z-Cam, because I tend to have an olive undertones to my skin, but when I film in Vlog on the GH5, I'm not filming in Vlog right now, I think we're in the natural profile, but when I film in Vlog on the GH5, it adds it basically leans very heavy on the magenta on my skin tones, right? Where the Z-Cam, I believe, gives me much more accurate representation of what my skin actually looks like, but it's taken me a while to get used to how the image looks because it's so drastic from what the GH5 looks like. So to my eyes, since I'm so used to looking at Vlog, it looks green, right? So I'm slowly learning how the camera actually appears. But when I just look at the footage out of this camera, I'm really enjoying it. But there's things that I'm still having to learn. Like, you know, for instance, how do I get the best audio out of this camera? Like, what's the best way to expose it? You know, like, how do I best need to rig this up so that way it works as a documentary camera and as a tool for the docs that I'm going to be filming. So in essence, that's sort of a first impressions video, but really that's why this camera, which deserves a lot of respect, is not properly getting evaluated in the way that it should. It's because, I mean, kind of the price point, which is a significant blessing, is also its curse. And people are expecting too much of this. And the thing that they're not expecting is how big the learning curve is. So I'm gonna try to hopefully guide you through that learning curve if you're interested. If you are, definitely let me know any questions that you have about this camera. I will try to answer them to the best of my ability. The first thing I'm definitely diving into is audio to try to figure out how to get the best out of this camera, because from what I hear, you can get some great audio out of it, but at the same time, it is quite confusing, and we will investigate that in the next video. So let me know if you have any questions, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.